So hello, Elsa and Peter, and welcome to IsReal Festival for Space Dogs screening in competition. I have a few questions for you, and the first one is uh, when this story that you wanted to tell appeared, and how did you choose the main characters of your film?
The initial idea is long ago now, more than 5 years maybe, and was very simple in the beginning. Was really a pure idea that more or less just popped up. That we simply thought that what we miss in cinema is an encounter with animals, especially on their height, on the height where they spend their lifetime. Which is very different from our human height. And dogs were animals we were very interested in, because especially street dogs we thought are kind of perfect example for nature being compressed between civilization and wilderness. And this was very simple and pure and very radical too. We had a film in mind that is without any word, without anything beside, like just being with them. And then we found out that this famous dog Laika was actually living on the street before she was sent to space. And this was a new level for our idea. And the idea developed with this information, because then we thought like, no, we have a really different story arc and a completely different field between the ground and the space. And then this was, I think, the first development.
But you wanted also to know how we picked the main heroes.
Yeah, specific the pack. How did you find it?
Yeah, we took a long time for researching and for what we called a casting. So we met plenty of different packs of dogs in Moscow, in the different regions. And yeah, to be honest, when we encountered especially those dogs you now see in the movie, we just were super interested and somehow fell in love with those characters. And we saw directly, okay, this is a young dog and he has to explore the world and explore his social systems and fight with his companion and find girls and so on. So it was clear for us he will have a very lively and maybe more exciting next few weeks or months than maybe an older dog. And in addition to that, also the area interested us a lot, where he actually lived, because it's a very diverse area. Not all Moscow looks like that.
Yeah, and what is very interesting in your film is, of course, the radical choices that you made on a formal and stylistic level, but also the idea of being non-judgmental towards the dogs. And it kind of reminded me an essay by John Berger that I read, the idea that there is no possibility of mutual recognition in an exchange of glances between human and animals. So did you think about that? Or
yeah,
we read this. This is John Berger, Why Look at Animals. We read super early, even a bit before the real idea started. I read this and always, I like to think about the way of encounter, what is happening if you look into the eyes of an animal, and what is actually happening in arts, in cinema, in fairy tale narrations, in our human way of talking about animals, thinking about animals, growing up with the idea, what are these other species? And this was really a driving force in the making of this film, because I was growing up with animals as a child, and so I had this height to look at them, but I did not yet have a language, and there were no stories yet. And this makes something very different when you start to hear about Disney or fairy tales or Lassie or whatever. And then suddenly all of the changes of this encounter, and we wanted to get back to this feeling of the pure okay, here is something else and I cannot understand and try to understand this animal. Yeah.
Yes, it's also like, what if animals could tell their own stories to us, right? Of course, also in this idea of being non-judgmental, there's an important scene in your film, which is the attack to the cat. So, I mean, this is a very important scene also because it must have been hard to decide whether to use that scene or not, right, in the film.
No. No. I mean, yeah, honestly speaking, we never questioned to show it. I don't know why. I mean, now a year passed or more than a year, then like back to the day when we've been in editing room and working with this scene, and we found that this scene was very central, and we actually decided to create like the arches, the story arches, the whole dramaturgy around this scene. So that's what we did also in other films, and I think it's just the way that we see it, that in every documentary, I think there's this essential scene, this one scene, you can really put everything down to it, and you create an environment around it, and you find the right tone to lead into this scene. And this was harsh, this was not easy. We tried a lot of different ways to place this scene, and I mean, of course, as you can imagine, when we had it more towards the end, it gave a whole different understanding to our approach also. And this we did not like at all. When we saw the whole film and then this was the climax, and we thought like, no, this is not giving a new perspective, a new answer. We just thought this scene is very important to understand the characters, like in very classical character building technique. We thought this is what we have to do. We have to show in this scene, I mean, everything is said about these dogs, all the contradictions that we have when we look at them. So we like the idea that first half hour of the film, we watch them and start to enjoy them and might think, now I understood them. But then they show us something completely different. And this was interesting. But the harshest was to be there when it happened, to deal with it as a crew, to deal with it happened. But after a couple of days and very interesting discussions in the group, we were 5 filming it. We knew immediately, no, this is unseen. It's bringing documentary cinema to an edge. And this is just what we want to do. And this is what we stand for and want to stand for.
Of course. And also an important part is played by the found footage material that you use in the film. Some of it, has it been difficult to obtain, some of the footage?
Yeah, like 80% what you see in the from the archive material was never shown before. And this was a long way to, first of all, find out where this material is, because we heard from time witnesses that they filmed everything and documented everything, but just the propaganda material is in open archives in Moscow, where you can, like in TV or film movie archives. And so we found out they filmed everything, but it's not stored in the archives. So we started to contact all the institutions who worked back then, like the scientific facilities. And there is one institute which is still running. They are now working with cosmonauts for the ISS. So they're making all the healthcare of the cosmonauts. And they first, in the beginning, started to work with the dogs. And after a very long negotiation and also a long building of trust with these people working there, they finally gave us the access to this material they stored in their basement. And they didn't have it in a good storing condition, so it was nearly disappearing and falling apart. And so now it's not just in the new context of this film, but also preserved for future, which is important to us, because otherwise in maybe 10 years, this would have been gone forever.
Mm.
Sure. And one last question is about the sound, which is also very important in your film, not only in the magnificent musical composition, but also in the sound and in the voice of the dogs. right? You paid a special attention to that as well.
Yeah, a lot. I mean, this was a very joyful part of creating of this film. We knew quite in the beginning that we don't want to focus too much on what the people talk when they surround the dogs. And as I said, as I grew up with dogs, so we talked a lot in the beginning of the making of this film about like how, I mean, what have we what is in our hands to work with cinematically? Like there is the way they walk, the way they behave, and there is, as you said, their voice. So we knew we have to focus on this, and we did a lot of like extra sound recording. Even when we stopped filming for a day, then we did another hour, like just following them with the boom and try to collect everything. And the sound designer Jonathan, he worked on a completely different level again with it.
And even if I grew up with dogs, I was surprised about their voices. And actually, when they're having conflicts or love, which really kind of words they give, and which how different the voices of each other are. This was very enjoyable.
Yeah, I mean, we were lucky. They were really talkative in comparison to other street dogs also. Mm-hmm. It was interesting, like the limping dog, it was a completely different sound when he was walking on a wet street alone. So we really had to focus on
his footsteps.
Yeah, and recording, I mean, very precise. But yeah, this was the fun part.
Okay, so thank you very much. I'm very happy to be screening Space Dogs in the international competition of IsReal, and hope to see you soon somewhere as soon as this strange situation will be over. Okay.
In real IsReal.
Next time. Okay. Okay. Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. See you soon.